After a season of doubt and failure comes a season of change, and this is it. It's all about the money. On Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, Chiefs Kingdom. Thanks for making us your first listen today here on the Locked On Chiefs, your daily show for the Kansas City Chiefs on the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network out there. We appreciate you everydayers always being here. If you want to be one of them and make us your first listen every day, make sure you sign up, you get subscribed, and go check out the Everydayer Club for a fresh new way to listen. Very, very easy, and I think you guys will enjoy it. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, home of the Athletic Matrix, and all the production metrics you need to know who's really who in the NFL draft, as well as NFL33.com, where me and my staff run down the whole league, and RGR Football, where we work film and every other aspect of the Chiefs. Today with my partner, Chris Clark from KC Chiefs Corner, tandem that we are going into our 10th offseason at this point, getting ready for next year. Going to be fun because this is a full circle moment for us. And the cap is the thing that drives this wheel. And it does. Money matters. That's what comes down to making team building work for you in a way that gets you to championships. We're going to run that all down for you. The Chiefs salary cap situation is actually getting worse right now as we speak. We'll lay that out for you. There is a new cap number coming. It doesn't give a ton of relief, but it does give some interesting outs. We're going to go through that as well. And there are a couple of moves that the Chiefs absolutely, positively have to make in order to get ready for this season. That's coming up later in the show. I'm excited about this because this is the subject matter area that you are an expert at that I sometimes can get a little bit stingy on. I want to talk about X's and O's on the field. I don't care about the cap other than can I get my guy when I need my guy? You got to run me through all this because this has been a tough situation. They had barely any salary cap most of the season, and now it's getting worse.
It is getting worse, and it's going to be very curious to see what they do and how they go about doing it. I know there are a lot of people out there that want to see the Chiefs go out and use a bunch of void years. I am not one of those people that want to see them go out and do a bunch of void years. I'll be very curious to see how they restructure the Patrick Mahomes deal. We'll get into that in just a minute. But I said this on Monday's show, and I know we're talking Chiefs, but I do want to throw this out there. The Philadelphia Eagles lost, and they have $427 million in void years through 2033. That means they have almost 150% of what the projected cap is for 2026 in void years over the next several years that they're going to have to deal with. They're going to have to deal with what they're going to do with A.J. Brown and a whole bunch of other players. I say all that to say this. The Chiefs sit at about $120 million. Most of that is on Patrick Mahomes. And it's based on how you deal with the roster and building a team around an organization or building a team around a QB or whoever your superstar is. The Eagles have built it around Jalen Hurts, and I think that shows you the way they went about building the roster and all the pieces they added to him really probably covered up some of his shortcomings that I think that you have seen over the last couple of games that he's played and definitely in the playoff game. I do think that this is going to be something that they're going to have to deal with, and thankfully, Kansas City's not in a position where you can really say that about Patrick Mahomes. While he did struggle at times in 2025, I still think he's the best quarterback in the NFL. And I do think that there are some things that he needs to fix. And I think he was dealing with injuries that we don't know about that will affect him in 2026.
That could be. I will say this, though. He better be the best quarterback in football because he's one of the most expensive. 78 on the cap next year is the projection, as I understand. They have to deal with that. We're going to talk about what they have to do that later, but that's part of it. Is that such a number? Now, any other little thing that you do, like signing futures contracts, adds to your cap deficit right now, which is sitting at negative $58 million for the 2026 season. But is that actually legitimate?
Not really, because as I was sitting here looking at this before we started this, it's negative $58 million for 2026, but that doesn't take into account the cap space that they had in 2025 that they can roll over, which is $11.3 million, it looks like. So it should be something where it's closer to about 47, I believe, is where their cap number should be, negative 47. So it's going to be one of those things where, yeah, it's not as bad as it looks, but it's still not great.
For those of you doing a double take, I'm doing the same thing because they ran most of the season at about $3 million in cap space. So something since the end of the season has changed, that in 2025, some restructure or something got to the point where they have now grown their cap space by $8 million that they can now roll over into the next year.
I would imagine, although I haven't had a chance to dive into all the numbers, I would imagine what that comes down to is likely to be earned incentives that didn't get hit. That would be the easiest thing that it could be. Yeah. Because you probably have a bunch of players. And so here's the easiest way that I could explain it in my guess as to what some of this is. If the Chiefs make the playoffs, player X gets $1 million. Well, the Chiefs didn't make the playoffs, but it would have been considered likely to be earned because they made the playoffs last year. So it would have been something that they would have had on their salary cap that they would have expected to owe in 2025. Well, now that they haven't, it was an incentive that they didn't get. They'll get that money back. So to me, that's probably what a lot of this money is, and where a lot of this money came from is you had incentives that were tied to playoffs, Super Bowls, maybe even Pro Bowls to an extent. It depends on how all that played out. But that would be the thing that would make the most sense to me as to why they have the situation that they have, where they have 11 million, it looks like, in cap space currently. The other thing to point out before we get into anything else is the Chiefs only have 215,000 of dead money in 2025. That is one of the lowest amounts in the NFL. So that's going to be something that obviously will change in 2026, because we're going to have to talk about how they're going to have to make some salary cap space, and some of the players that they'll have to take, that they'll probably have to let go to make some of that space. That'll be a little bit later.
Yeah, and I do think that it also gives you the understanding of how much the Chiefs had tied up in incentives to be earned. That's going to have an impact as well. But there's an even bigger thing that's going to affect what the Chiefs do starting on the player side here very soon. And that is a giant and a brand new cap number that's next.
If you've ever hired somebody who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. If I need to hire someone for this show, I go straight to Indeed to be very specific about what I need. Real experience, not just a resume buzzword. Instead of struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a higher than non-sponsored jobs. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners to the show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at messier parts of how we run our businesses and think there has to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. I love how simple Quo makes everything. Your whole team can call and text from one shared business number, so nothing gets missed. Everyone sees the full conversation thread, which makes replies faster and more personal. It works right from your phone or computer, and you can even keep your existing number. And Quo's smart AI tools automatically log calls, summarize conversations, and highlight next steps, so details never slip through the cracks. It's no surprise Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free Plus, get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/lockedonnfl. That's quo.com/lockedonnfl. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers.
Everything changes every single year. And the thing that kind of kickstarts the whole planning segment is a projection of what the cap number is going to be. Everything goes into it, from ticket sales, et cetera, et cetera. Contracts for media is the big thing that's been moving a lot of the cap number lately. And there's a new projection for what is to be the cap number next season. What is it, and how surprising is it for you?
It's very surprising. The number I saw was $295 million. That is a number that I would not have expected. $295,500,000 is the guess is what the salary cap is going to be. In 2025, it was closer to $280,000. So that's almost a $20 million swing in 1 year. Obviously, that's not 10%, but that's still quite the jump. And when you start looking at how that's going to affect what the teams are able to do and what players are going to get as contracts, it all is adjusted based on how that number changes year to year. And generally speaking, as it sits right now, I would imagine we won't actually find what the real cap number is going to be until closer to about March 1st. So this is a guess. And generally speaking, I would say most of the guesses usually come in a little bit lower than what you're expecting the number to, or what the number ends up coming out to be. So we will find out, but I would imagine it's probably going to even be higher and maybe even close to 300 million.
Yeah. What a difference a couple of years makes, because we were talking 210, 220, it feels, the last time that we were in a cap crunch we were really concerned about for this roster. And now we're talking about, hey, they got to get under 300 million. That's a very different thing. Now, the largest proportion of that, and I don't have the percentages by cap number, you may have that in front of you, are three players in Patrick Mahomes, Juwan Taylor, and Chris Jones. They're far and away the biggest contracts on this team right now.
Yeah, they are. And when you look at it, Mahomes is 78 million. Chris Jones is just under 45, and Juwan Taylor is 27.4, basically. And really, other than Trey Smith, who is just under 25 million, there's nobody really close to Juwan Taylor. So, you look at Trey Smith's new deal, that's going to get him some money, and his cap number in 2026 is going to be up there a bit. And then you have Bolton and Creed Humphrey that are up there, but you have a lot of other players that aren't making a ton of money for Kansas City. That's the crazy thing. We talked about this a little earlier. They're at like negative 58 million, and they only have 50 players under contract. So technically speaking, they're probably closer to negative 60 million, because you still have to add one, and it's going to be likely a league minimum. So around 800,000 would be my guess. And so you're really closer to, negative 60 million in salary cap space. Now, obviously, they're going to make some changes, and some of that will get taken care of. And we'll talk a little bit later in the next segment as to some of the players that they probably are going to have to let go. You mentioned one in Juwan Taylor, who I don't think that there's any possible way he's on this roster in 2026. So that is going to be a number that will change, obviously.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the moves that they have to make. It's interesting to me, and something to note here, that the Chiefs are paying offensive linemen. They're one of the most O-line centric teams in this league, with Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey both making an enormous amount of money, 18 plus, and obviously the Taylor's there. Now, you didn't get it from Trey because of the back injury. I'm not concerned about that in any way. Drew Tranquill's in that mix. He's another player we'll talk about in a bit. But when you take a look at who's earning the money, Creed Humphrey's the only All-Pro on this roster. Kudos to him. He did get named to the All-Pro team a couple of days ago. And he's, what is he on the cap? 18 next year. That's a bargain at this point.
It's a bargain, but he's also the number one center in the NFL when it comes to pay. At least he was when he got the contract. I don't think he got past this year. So, and we talked about this when Creed signed his contract. The Chiefs would have written that same contract for Trey Smith in a heartbeat. And you look at what Trey Smith got, and obviously he got more money because it's a different position. Even though he is not the same caliber player of Creed Humphrey. I think that's kind of crazy how that works out. But I'm not worried about them paying Trey Smith. The thing that I like about this is you have a situation where you literally have your starting 5 offensive line, and I think it's pretty cost controlled for the most part because your right tackle is more than likely going to be Jalen Moore, although he is a name you could consider if you wanted to cut somebody. You could consider cutting Jalen Moore. I don't think they do that, but you have a rookie in Josh Simmons who's going to be on a rookie deal for another 3 or 4 years. You have Kingsley Suamataia, who's going to be on a rookie deal for another 2 years starting in 2026. And then you have Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith already under contract. So your offensive line is pretty good, at least 4 positions deep for the next several years.
Yeah, and that makes a huge difference. It allows you the variability to go out there and do what you need to do. Now, obviously, those 2 giant numbers at center and right guard do have an effect. But there's even a possibility that it's a draft pick or a Sapola that ends up at right tackle as well. We'll talk about more about how you get there. But if you're talking about 60%, 3 out of 5 of your offensive linemen on rookie contracts, you're doing the kind of thing that we always talk about having to do when you have superstars like Patrick Mahomes and Chris Jones. Now, I won't say the decision on Trent McDuffie is still yet to be made, but I won't call Trent McDuffie a superstar. Is he a very high-end, almost elite player? Yes. Is he in the top 3 at his position? I don't think that I could make that argument, but he's in the top 10, and I think he's pushing top 5. And yet that is, I think, what separates whether you have to make accommodations for a contract versus you have a contract you can live with. So the question then becomes, how can you live with it better? How can you make moves to get things so that they have more space to get out to those superstars? They have to do something with Patrick Mahomes' contract, and that's next. Let's be real. No one starts a business for the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets. That's where Gusto comes in, to take the stress out of payroll, benefits, and HR so you can focus on running your business and supporting your team just like we do. Gusto is the all-in-one remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, or paying employees, Gusto helps you do all of it from one place with no hassle and no hidden fees. Unlimited payroll runs, 1 monthly price. It means no surprises at your end-of-month run. Gusto's automated tools like offer letters, onboarding materials, and direct deposits save you hours every single week. Try Gusto today over at gusto.com/lockedonnfl, and you'll get 3 months when you run your first payroll. That's right. 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/lockedonnfl. One more time. That's gusto.com/lockedonnfl. Wildcard round is almost over, and we are ready to move on to the second round. FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in the action. Right now, every NFL playoff game, FanDuel gives users a way to get a profit boost pack waiting for them right inside the app. Each game day, you go see a pack with multiple profit boosts that you can apply to your bets anytime you want. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day, and you'll see what boost that you have available to apply. The boost can let you lean into game day instincts, whether you're backing and looking and trying to ride momentum or the defense or the quarterback play, or exactly what the coaches are going to do because they just don't really like each other. There's a lot that goes on. You can make your picks and apply your profit boost to get even bigger payouts while the playoffs get rolling. So visit FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost on every NFL playoff game day. Now, there's a plethora of things that you can do. We know that the cap is quote-unquote magic and isn't necessarily a true barrier, more of an artificial guardrail. You know this better than me, but one thing just stands out above all else. $78 million for a single player, even when you're talking, what does that come out to, Chris? Like 27% of the cap cannot stand in a season when you have to add a ton of talent in order to try to get back to a championship run.
26.3%. So
yeah,
you were really close. It's not sustainable. You can't pay Patrick Mahomes that amount of money. The interesting part about his contract is he has all these prorated signing bonuses and roster bonuses and base salary. So prorated signing bonus they can't do anything about. It's something that is going to be on his cap number. That's $21 million. He has got a guaranteed salary of 10.4, which is a roster bonus, and a base salary of 45.35. So right there between the roster bonus and his base salary is $55 million. You can free up $40 million of cap space by moving it around, bonusing it out, and pushing it into future seasons. That becomes an issue in the future, obviously, and that's where they're going to have to make some adjustments. I'm starting to wonder if, especially considering the injury, if this is one of the years where you look at it and say, okay, maybe we need to start making a contract adjustment and get him a new deal to spread this out a little bit further, because you are running into a situation where you would have void years with Mahomes in 32 and 33. They don't have any money sitting in there right now, but that's something that is in the contract for in the future. And the other problem that you run into if you move money this year to next year he's already on the books for $74 million. Like, you're just going to make it worse in 2027, which you're going to have to do regardless, and you're going to have to make some adjustments in 2027. I get all that. I have to wonder if all this extra time and the fact that he's going to be dealing with an injury and they're not playing and they can focus on some different things, if this is where you sit down and you say, okay, how can we make this work for the next 10 years? Because I do think that he's going to be in a situation where he's going to sign another long-term deal, and it would not shock me for them to do another long-term deal this offseason. And if they don't do it this offseason, I definitely think that it gets done in 2027.
Yeah, I have to agree. That's what I'm thinking too, is whatever the remedy is that they built in the original contract in their planning. And I do think there was some tool built into this contract that it gets executed about now. That makes a whole lot of sense. And I think the injury only adds to that impetus to do that now while you're not getting the performance on the field, because I do expect him to miss a couple of games. I don't know. It could be 2, could be 8. I don't know. But there's going to be some. I don't think he plays 20 games next season for this team as they try to go back to the Super Bowl. So that's obviously right.
20 games.
Yeah. Hey, if you're gonna dream big. Let's go. So the second most obvious move is one that I think we've at least mentioned a couple of times, and it is a significant savings. It doesn't have to happen, but I think as we go through, a player that ended up not being able to finish the season due to injury, and one that I think the investment in the position of offensive tackle has been pretty clear. What's the situation with Juwan Taylor, and what do you expect?
So, you know how I said that they had $215 million in dead cap space? That is going to change, and the reason it's going to change is because when you cut Juwan Taylor, which is what I expect them to do, they will have almost $7.4 million in dead cap space just for Juwan Taylor. Now, the big key on that is he's got a $27.4 million cap number. They're going to eliminate $20 million off the top from that cap number, and they will get $20 million in cap space. So I do think that that's a move that gets done. And to be clear, that's not a move that you can make with a post-June 1 designation, because he's not under contract in 2027. So it's a cut, and all of it will be dead cap space in 2026. So the full 7.4 will be dead cap space that they'll have to deal with in 2026. I don't think that's going to be an issue. Still saves them $20 million.
And that's significant. That's another big chunk. Now, after that, it gets a little murky. If there was a next move for you, what would be the next thing that needs to fall? Or is it a break glass? Like, if you have to, you go do it.
I don't think it's a break glass. If you have to, you go do it. The biggest question to me is Chris Jones has a $35 million guaranteed salary in 2026, and I don't know what they do with it. You can't pay him $36 million based on his performance this year. I don't know what you could do at this point. Is he on the roster in 2026? Maybe. I'm not saying they cut him. That's not possible, I don't think. So it's a question of, do you trade him? Because there's going to be value there for somebody, but you're not going to get a ton back considering what he's owed monetarily. So are you able to trade him and get anything of value? I really just don't know on that one. That's the big question when it comes to Chris Jones. Like, if you traded him pre-June 1st, Let's see. If you trade him pre-June 1st, you'd save $15.6 million. You'd still have close to $30 million in dead cap space. I don't think you'd want to go that direction. If you trade him post June 1st, you would have a dead cap space of just under $10 million this year, and you would save $35 million in cap space. I don't think that cutting him is an option. Because I don't think that they would go in that scenario. Like, you'd literally save, if you cut him even post 6-1, you would only save $100,000 in cap. Like, it's not worth it at that point.
Right.
So trading would be the most beneficial scenario. But the reality is if you're going to do that, you're more than likely going to be on the hook for at least part of his roster bonus, which is $16 million. And maybe somebody's willing to pay him the $19 million in salary. I could see that, but they're not going to be willing to pay him $35 million, not give you anything of value in draft compensation. So to me, that's a move that I think is going to need to be made. I don't know that the Chiefs do it, although I think that they should. This is a scenario where you look back and you get back into what the Patriots did with Tom Brady. And I want to say this carefully. I'm not saying Mahomes took less money than he had to, but I do think he did take less money than he could have. And when you look back at the similarities with him and Tom Brady when it comes to salary cap, that allowed them to sign some other players, that allowed them to play other players. But the bigger thing that the Patriots did and what they were so successful with and why they were so successful for as long as they were is because they looked at players and said, okay, this is the year where we finally think that he's probably not going to be worth the value, and they moved on. Now, generally speaking, they cut players when they got there, didn't make huge trades, but they did do some trades. So is it possible that Kansas City is in that scenario where they decide, okay, well, we need to trade Chris Jones? I could see it. There's several trades that would make sense for this team. And when you're reloading and considering to reload, Chris Jones is probably number one that I would say would be the guy that you could maybe get something for if you're willing to pay the cash. But you have to be willing to pay the cash. The other side of it, and this isn't really a salary cap issue, this year at least, is what do you do with Trent McDuffie? Because he's under contract for one more season, and you either have to pay him or trade him, because I don't think he's playing under his rookie deal this season.
I tended to disagree with that, but Trent McDuffie's a conversation for a different day. 96.7 is the number that stands out to me. There's one team that has intimate knowledge of Chris Jones that has that much cap space, and it is the Tennessee Titans. I think Mike Borgonzi would be interested, especially if he can work out where the Chiefs pay some of that cash. But it's also interesting to me of note, I don't think any trade would ever happen with any other AFC West teams, two of which are in the top 5 in cap space in the Chargers and Raiders. But the other two that are very interesting, have 69 respectively, are the Seahawks and the Rams, who are in a race, and two of the surviving teams within their own division that might be interested in trying to up their defensive firepower. So there are some targets, folks. We will do a whole show on Chris Jones and the trade possibilities with this cap.
One really quick note before we go, a couple of names to watch for potential cuts. Drew Tranquil would save them $6 million, cut pre-June 1st. Mike Dana would save them $9 million. Christian Fulton would save him $5 million. Those are just a couple of the names that you're looking at. Noah Gray would save him almost $4 million as well. So there are definitely some people that you could be looking at that would be saving them some cap space. They could save easily $20 million, $25 million just from cutting a couple of the veterans. And when you look at it, they're going to have to get younger at several different positions. And with the uncertainty with Patrick Mahomes, this would be the year that if you're going to make some of those moves, I would be trying to make those moves right now. Not just because you have uncertainty with Mahomes. You can still try to go back to the Super Bowl and win in the playoffs next year, but you're going to have to do it with a different roster, because you don't want to be in a situation where, as I started this conversation out, you don't want to be in a situation where you're like the Eagles and having to make severe changes to your roster because it's unsustainable going forward. And if you let this go another season or two, it will be unsustainable. And then you're going to have to completely gut the team and rebuild. And that is something you don't want to do if Mahomes is healthy and ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to get everything prepped and ready. And we're going to run it down for you here. We'll talk Chris Jones on Thursday. Tomorrow, you're going to hear from Matt Derrick, our resident insider of what's going on from his point of view. Give us the insight that he has. We'll come back, talk Chris. We'll talk McDuffie this week as well. Make sure you're here for every single episode because unlike the season, we don't stop. We don't quit. We just keep going 5 days a week, year round, and you don't want to miss a bit of it. This might be the biggest retool the Chiefs have done in the last decade, so make sure you're with us. Thanks for your time. Have a great one, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.